What's up, my friends? Welcome back to another video, and today we are taking a look at the newest library from Insanity Samples called Neo Woodwind. So, first of all, you might be wondering, like, there are quite a few woodwind libraries on the market, so what does this one have to offer, you know? And the typical approach for, woodwind libraries really does vary. But as far as I know, Billy from Neo Woodwinds basically told me that he wanted to approach this from a very expressive take. You know, he wanted to record these soloists in a way that allows them to carry melodic lines and have a very expressive nature to them, so that these are not really intended as, buried back in the mix. They're intended to be brought forth and actually exposed, So it's always interesting to get a little bit of feedback on what the actual library is intended for. And of course, you want to make sure you read the sales page, make sure you listen to the demo so you kind of choose what you're looking for, see if it's the right library for you. And in today's video, we're going to take a look at the patches, the 4 instruments it does come with, and then we'll also do a little giveaway at the end. So Billy was very generous to also give away a copy for our subscribers here. So let's jump in. The library basically comes with 4 woodwinds. There's the flute, there is the bassoon, there is the clarinet, and then there is the piccolo. So you might be wondering, there's a glaring omission here, the oboe, right? Where's the oboe? And I was asking Billy about this, and he basically told me that initially he had planned to record the oboe, so, the typical woodwind quartet. But then he had the opportunity to work with the piccolo player, which is actually the player who played on all the Lord of the Rings scores. He did all the flute and piccolo stuff there. And so that kind of tweaked the idea, the concept of the library for himself. And so he basically recorded the 3 main woodwinds, but then added in the piccolo as well. And I believe the other woodwinds are also principal players of the London Philharmonic Orchestra as well. So these are high caliber players, of course, and you are basically getting the sound that they kind of produce. And then basically, let's take a look at some of the details here. So you have 12 gigabytes of space required, 18,000 samples, 4 mic positions, so you do have some flexibility there. In terms of articulations, you have expressive longs with legato, marcato, staccato, staccatissimo, trills, runs, this is pretty cool, flutter tongues, ornaments, which you do have in some libraries, but not in every single one. You do have multiphonics as well, tongue rams, whistle tones, and then singing and playing, which is kind of unique to this library. Quick note, you do need the full version of Contact 5.8.1 or higher, and it's not in the free Contact player. So just keep that in mind. And they recommend that you have at least 8 gigabytes of RAM to run it, okay? Typically when I've run instruments on 8 gigabytes of RAM, it tends to kind of crash a little bit. So I would recommend at least 16 to 32 gigabytes for your own system. But that's all the details we need to know there. And then they have the walkthroughs and the contextual videos as well. So here we go. Let's kind of dive in. Here are the 4 patches, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we'll start with piccolo first. I always like to demonstrate from the highest woodwinds all the way down. We're going to start with the true legato with a piccolo player, and we're just going to run through all the articulations so you can get a sense of what they really sound like. All right, here we go. So we'll start with the piccolo here. All right, so just a quick note before we move on to the other articulations here. So these little dots here, these are essentially overlays, and depending on how hard you press the key, you are going to activate that overlay. So I forgot the exact value, but if you press relatively hard, the Piccolo is going to trigger a staccato or staccatissimo sample to increase the attack at the start of the note. So that's really good if you want some sort of accent at the beginning of your phrase. The C sharp triggers a half step trill when you press hard, and then the D triggers a whole step trill, and then you can immediately play your legato lines after that, and you can create your phrase that way instead of having to key switch back and forth, which is also an option, but you can absolutely do this. So great to know. All right, let's kind of move on to the marcato. Here we go. Okay, so just a really quick note here about the runs. I do not believe they are tempo synced. So I tried previously to adjust the tempo in my DAW, and the runs, I believe, stayed at the same speed. So that's just my personal experience. They do also have a really cool thing where the run kind of starts with a longer note, right? And then they do the run, they execute it, and at the very end, it kind of holds the note a little bit longer. So that's just a little tasteful thing that the performers decided to do in this library. And yeah, the runs are pretty nice. They have the up and down, and then the up only and the down only, and they are major runs only, I believe. So just keep that in mind if you're looking for a dedicated woodwind run library. You have options like Hollywood Winds. You even have Berlin Woodwinds with their runs builder and stuff. But this one, the runs are more of just an additional articulation that you can sprinkle into your arrangement. Always nice to have. Okay, some flutter tongues. Okay, that's like woodwind ASMR right there. But yeah, you get a sense of the Piccolo sound. So you do get a quite beautiful, full, mid-rich, heavy sound, I would say. But at the same time, you do hear the clarity in the key noises. You hear the legato transitions are relatively smooth there. And one big plus for this library so far is that I find it very playable. Like, it's very responsive to the velocity that I'm playing with. It kind of reacts very quickly is the easy way to say that. One thing I would have loved, though, even more actually, is to have these sustains hold even longer. So right now they hold, to me, about maybe a couple of seconds. I would have loved maybe even like 7 to 8 seconds or something. That I think that would just give it even more flexibility there. So maybe we're doing something a little bit more expressive, and we want that ending note just to be tapering off a little bit more slowly, a little bit more naturally. I feel like having the sustains a little bit longer would be beautiful. Let's just have a quick listen to maybe a couple of these microphone positions. So this is the mid mic on the left. And let's put in the mid mic on the right. Then we have the overhead. And finally, the distant mic. So what's cool is that none of these microphone positions leave the woodwind sounding washy or just, with lacking detail, and I really like it when the woodwinds have a chance to really shine in the spotlight. So again, this matches with the tone and vision of the library, which is having them more as soloist purposes. And, having microphone positions that are actually conducive to that purpose are always really nice. Okay, let's move on to the flute. I'll just go through these articulations a little quicker. Here we go. So yeah, definitely a more creepy sound there with these this last articulation right there. Definitely pretty unique for this library. I haven't heard this anywhere else. So great job, Billy, with that articulation. But yeah, you get a sense of what the flute sounds like. Again, very consistent with the piccolo in terms of the tone. Very playable as well. You definitely hear how quickly it responds to the keys being pressed. The legato itself, though, isn't my absolute favorite. I personally prefer the one in, let's say, Berlin Woodwinds or Cinematic Studio Woodwinds. It has that sort of connection and that musicality to it that really connects that phrase going longer. For this patch specifically, I feel like the subsequent note after the first note feels like it's kind of swelling in very, very minutely, like very little, but it is there, and for me it kind of breaks the phrase just a little bit. So I would also have loved to hear the legato transition a little stronger and a little more pronounced, and this is with the legato volume already turned up all the way. The key sound of course helps with the realism as well, but it's just a musicality that I can't really describe. But if I play this one more time, so right? And that's the difficulty, because I believe these woodwinds were all sampled with one expressive dynamic layer. So they kind of have a crescendo and then a decrescendo effect. And so what you end up getting, right, is when you transition to the new note, you get that crescendo, which makes it sound like a swell, and therefore not every phrase you want to start like that. You want maybe a phrase to start quiet, but then as the phrase grows, all the notes after that you want to be on the louder side and then eventually come back down. And so if you have notes that basically continue to swell every time they're played, then that might not fit the shape of your phrase too well, right? And that's a thing that you want to keep in mind. So that's just a personal taste there. I feel that's a balance that CSW, for example, captured very well there. But anyway, let's move on to the clarinet. And there's a little Easter egg here that Billy mentioned when we get to the runs. But let's just play this a little bit here. All right, the little Easter egg is the Rhapsody in Blue glissando at the very beginning. And they basically sampled, I believe it's 2 different takes. The first one is the full, beginning of the piece all the way up to the B flat. The second one without the initial notes at the beginning and just sliding up to the target. So let's have a listen to those. And the other one. Right there. So they both end on B flat, of course. I mean, you could just pitch shift it too if you wanted to with a really good algorithm, and you might pass it off as it being played in that key, but always a nice idea to have there. This definitely reminds me of Stuart Little too. This little thing in Rhapsody in Blue was used, actually lifted at the very beginning of it in that film when Snowbell and Stuart are walking along the alley. So I really love it. Great to have. Okay, finally, let's take a look at the bassoon. Here we go. So here I really like that the sustains themselves are actually held for a longer amount of time. This feels like at least 5-6 seconds, which tapers off really naturally. So by the way, there are no looped sustains, right? The soloists are kind of left to taper off on their own however they like to. And I think that it works really well in this context. All right, so that is the library essentially. And again, I think all of these soloists have a very specific sound to them. You know, they feel more full bodied, they feel rich, especially in the low and mid areas. The highs are either tapered or don't have as much of a focus. And so you're definitely getting that darker aesthetic when you invest in this library, just as a personal takeaway. In addition to that, keep in mind that the library is relatively playable. You do get the soloist responding pretty quickly. There is no playable runs patch, but the legato is adaptive if you want it to be following your speed, or it could also follow the velocity. So the hard, like the amount of hard or soft attacks that you put into the notes, right? Then you can just leave it as fixed, fast or slow, but adaptive is always nice because it follows your performance. But again, keep in mind the sound of the legatos. You know, if that's to your liking, then by all means go for it. For me, I think for expressive soloist purposes, my favorites are probably the Berlin Woodwinds soloist series, and the Cinematic Studio Woodwinds are definitely up there as well. This library I could definitely see myself using for more of those experimental articulations and some of those Easter eggs that are definitely really unique to this library. But yeah, the overall tone is very husky, it's very warm, so if a situation calls for that, then I might definitely turn to this one as well. So just a really nice addition to the marketplace. Always room for woodwind libraries, and really just a really solid effort from Billy for putting this together. So you're probably wondering about the giveaway, right? So let's dive into that. Billy's very kind to give away one copy of this library, and there are 3 things you need to do to enter. Number 1, make sure you fill out the form below. Enter your details there. Let me know how I can contact you, because this is where I will be contacted the winners through email. And in addition to that, you'll be subscribed to my email list, because this is where I'll be sending you free material on improving your music and mockups every single week, exclusive stuff that I don't send anywhere else. So this is definitely the place to be. Number 2, make sure you leave a comment below this video. Let me know what you would use this library for and why you would like it. I'd love to know that. And finally, number 3, leave a like on this video, because it really helps the channel grow. So thank you so much for watching. Again, make sure you follow those 3 steps to enter the giveaway, and I will see you on the other side. Take care, my friends. Bye-bye.